Hello, folks. Welcome to Art of the City. I am Ruth-Ann Thorn. I'm your host today, and I'm so honored to be part of SWAIA's Indian Market virtual platform for 2020. I've been really excited for this month because we're devoting the entire month to Indian country, to Native American arts. And it's a very important platform for us. I'm a Native person, and for those of you who don't know me, I am part of the Rincon band of Luiseno Indians right here where I'm live streaming from San Diego, California. And I'm going to be bringing in artists from all over the country, but primarily a lot of them are in the Santa Fe area. And Santa Fe has really been kind of the pillar for Native arts to be bought and sold for many, many years. Indian Market started in 1922, so it's been around for a really long time. And this is the very first time that it's not going on. And one of the things I think is so important about bringing artists onto this live platform is the fact that many artists that do show at Indian Market, and there are about 1,000 of them coming from federally recognized tribes from around the country, and it is a juried show. Many of them depend on Indian Market for their entire year of resources. So a lot of them, they sell a lot of artwork, and it represents between 70 to 90% of their annual income for the year, what they sell at Indian Market. So what we're doing here at Art of the City is we're bringing those great artists to you virtually. So make sure you spread the word. We're going to have great artists coming on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And it will be live streaming at 4 p.m. like right now from Pacific Standard Time, and then wherever your time zone is. So it's a really great honor to be part of it. The other thing I just wanted to mention is that, the whole idea of Native art is really rooted in the fact that this is the one thing that we've been able to hang on to as a cultural people. So when we are bringing these artists on, many of the art that you're going to see has been passed down throughout the generations, through families and through traditions. And within Indian country, there's really a very large diversity of cultural practices and ideas and things that you're going to see that are brought into the art that we're going to be showing you. So today I have a very special artist. He comes from a Comanche background. I always say that he is Comanche royalty because you're going to hear he's just got an incredible story. And he is one of those people that are not only creating beautiful art, but are also creating a way for you to be able to learn about the Comanche people and the history. So it's a very exciting thing for me to bring him on the show. But before I do that, I thought it would be appropriate, since this is the first day of August and the kickoff of Indian Market, that I'm going to just light a little bit of sage here. This sage actually comes from a neighboring tribe here in San Diego, also Luiseno tribe from Pechanga. My good friend Myra gave this to me. So I'm just going to light this in our tradition. And hopefully I don't burn the studio down with it. So I'm just going to ask Spirit to do a blessing for Indian Market and also for all of the artists that have lost this revenue stream this year and the opportunity to share their beauty with people from all around the world. There's about 150,000 people that go to Santa Fe. I am one of them, and will not be traveling there this year. So let me just ask Spirit, if you wouldn't mind bringing this great blessing upon my people in Indian country, all of the nations that are the creatives that I'm going to bring on the show, that you would bless them, that you would keep their families safe, keep the virus away, and also bless their hands as they do these great crafts and fine art and jewelry and culinary arts and all these things that you've gifted them with. And so I asked that, and my sage is out. So that's perfect. So let's go ahead and see if we can get this great artist, Nocona Burgess, onto our show here. Welcome, Nocona.
Howdy, howdy. It's good to be back.
It's good to see you. So you and I, we've done some projects together, and I thought maybe you could share with the folks because you live right near Santa Fe, just on the outskirts there, and you've been involved with Indian Market for many, many years. Tell me what your thoughts are on having this market not be here for the first year or forever.
Well, my thoughts are with a lot of my friends, and that they're artists, and this being their livelihood, and trying to deal with this because it's different. It works different with artists. A lot of artists, many artists do a lot of shows. A lot of shows have been canceled, and just kind of that income revenue, coming in has been, who knows what's going to happen. And so I always said that Indian Market is the Super Bowl of all these art shows, and a lot of people make a lot of their income from this, and it's a big deal. And I know that my artist friends are hustling. I know the galleries are hustling. Everybody's trying to make do. We've been doing a lot of Zoom stuff, a lot of online stuff, a lot of online sales. Myself, I've had a couple studio invites. I had a studio sale, a gallery opening, everything online. So I think everybody's just trying to adjust and kind of hold it down until things change.
It's true. And even my gallery located in Solana Beach, we were closed for 3 months, and now we're open 5 hours a day, but we're very careful. We have social distancing, and unfortunately, not a lot of people are feeling comfortable going out and going to businesses, which I completely understand, but so even though we're open, it doesn't really change a whole lot for the arts.
Right. And because even me, right when it all was coming down, I had a two-man show at Manitou Gallery here in Santa Fe. I'm represented by Manitou, and myself and Uppy Ethelbach, we had a two-man show, and it all got shut down. I mean, it was that week, we were trying to hold out, and then right that week, they shut everything down in Santa Fe. I believe that was April 10th. So that was it. That was our show. So we kind of adjusted and kind of had like a Zoom opening from the studio, but it's not the same, So, so I just know a lot of artists are kind of dealing with that. And so there's been some gallery openings, but it's social distancing. So many people can kind of be in, and, there's not a lot of people in town because usually in Santa Fe in the summer, it's hopping. It's art season.
Right.
So, yeah.
I would be there this week had it not been shut down, because it's a big highlight as an art dealer. I go and I walk all the booths and I look for artists. And, this is something that I think for art dealers as well, it's kind of off of the schedule there. And then that's one less thing that we can go scout great artists and bring them into our galleries. So that's been tough. But, I was reflecting, when I was coming from the gallery to, get all the show things together, I was reflecting about just who we are as Native people. And in a lot of ways, this is not our first rodeo when it comes to pandemics. And so within who we are as Native people, our great grandparents experienced, these types of things where, there were diseases that came in. And it's really kind of interesting to see, as occupied people, 100 million of us here on this continent, and now we are experiencing this again, but now all of our neighbors are experiencing it as well. It's kind of ironic.
Right. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, natives survived, we got hit really hard with smallpox, and natives survived smallpox by social distancing. Some tribes actually had smallpox camps. They would make these blankets with the elk seeds or the shells on them that were red, had the white, because that's what your face looked like when you had smallpox. And so they had separate camps. And so people that had survived smallpox that were then immune to it took care of the people that were sick. And then they either died and they would bury them away from people, or they would, tend to them so they got better. But they had a whole separate camp. So social distancing is kind of how we survived smallpox, by staying away from these camps where the sick, infected people were, and we had separate camps, So, we did that back then, and I feel
Right.
like, we've got to figure that out now. I know that like tribes have been hit hard. So yeah, it's just something that we need to deal with.
Right. And I think a lot of the tribes that are not in the metropolitan cities where there's commerce are really struggling because they, like the Navajo tribes have been hit really hard. A lot of, there's a lot of folks that are still part of those tribes, and then they're kind of not in those places where they can get access to medicine, and they also don't have the resources like some of the gaming tribes do. So,
Right.
That's a tough thing.
And tribal people are social. So when it was first coming down the pike, and people were still getting together, and as families and churches and gatherings and stuff like that. So it was really hard, to kind of avoid that. And now we're having to. I see a lot of powwows and events and cultural events that are canceled because you just can't.
It's true. There's a lot more Facebook happening.
Right.
Well, the beauty of what you bring is that you bring something that I feel is so essential, and your talent to create this incredible beauty. And that nurtures the soul during these difficult times. And I think that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, because I know you've been creating prior to this for Indian Market. And I was hoping maybe we could see some of those beautiful creations that we're not going to be able to walk into your booth space or into Manitou Gallery to see this year.
Right. Yeah, I've got some pieces here that I'll show you. I've actually kind of taken the opportunity this summer, since I really didn't have anything on deck. Even as we were kind of doing this virtual indie market, it's not the same. I start doing some landscapes and kind of some little bit more abstract portraiture than what I normally do. So I kind of, and I've been talking about this stuff for a long time. So I thought, well, I don't really have anything on my plate, so I might as well experiment. And so I'll show some of these pieces that I've been working on. And and like I said, I usually do some experimental or type pieces, and I always have them at Indian Market for people to see and kind of get responses and things like that. So I kind of do what I always do and what I'm noted for, but then I always kind of have like little side pieces and see, kind of get a good reaction, because like I said, there's 150,000 people there, and people are coming to your booth. So yeah, so I'll show some of these.
Okay, I'm going to minimize my screen so we can see these a little bit better. Oh, wrong way. Let me try it. Okay, there we go.
So these are some landscapes that I've been doing, and I probably haven't done landscapes in 10 years or more. And so this is the pattern all in northern New Mexico. And I just kind of thought I'd approach, these monumental places the way that I did my portraits. I've been talking about it, and I said I had an idea. We were kind of driving around on spring break. We had taken our beach trip, and it was kind of in my brain, and then it just kind of dawned on me that I would take the same approach with the portrait. So, and kind of do these iconic places, and then use kind of a flat shape in the background, because I kind of square out some of my portraits. So like this, so I kind of use the same approach on the landscape.
That's stunning. The landscapes are absolutely beautiful.
And thank you. And these are just places that I've been to that I'm familiar with. Like I said, this is the pattern all up in northern New Mexico. This is Shiprock here, and then this is the Tucumcari as you're kind of going toward Texas from New Mexico headed toward Oklahoma. So these are things that I've seen, hundreds and hundreds of times, and just felt like, I had like this relationship to them. And so yeah, like I said, these are brand new. I put them out on Instagram and emails, and actually been pretty successful. We've sold, quite a few of them this summer. So I'm surprised and happy that people have, that like them, and they trust. It's kind of funny because you kind of have to trust what you know about the person's art. You're seeing it digitally, or a digital photograph on a website, or even on this, and you still kind of trust that you know what the artist brings. And then these next pieces are just some are some portraits I've done.
I have a quick question for you on your landscapes, because when I came to your studio before, I think you only had one. Did you find as a creative, as an artist, that you started getting more interested in nature because maybe you didn't have that socialization? Because I know you normally focus on figurative work.
Right. Yeah. I think it came about our RV trip. We were driving around because we always talk about how we live in such a beautiful state. We try to play tourist with our own state sometimes. And so we went to some regions, even though these aren't some of the places that we went to, it kind of made me start thinking about all the places we have in New Mexico, Arizona, Oklahoma, that we did. So it kind of got in my brain, it kind of got in my conscience.
Okay.
Being outside. So I think the RV trip really kind of propelled me to start thinking about this and doing landscapes again. So I've really enjoyed it. It's kind of a different aspect. And yeah, I just think, thinking about that, thinking about nature again, because I did that before a long time ago when I started doing animals, because I hadn't done animals. And we lived out in a little town outside of Santa Fe, and we would see a lot of animals out there, a lot of nature, and it kind of propelled me to do that. So this kind of did the same thing. It kind of kickstarted the brain and the idea of thinking about, places and locations and kind of what they mean to me. And so, yeah, I started painting them.
Well, I always like to ask artists, because people who are watching who aren't artists, which are normally our collectors, because they wish they could do that, but they get so much joy from somebody like you and your creativity, is kind of letting the viewer get inside the head of the artist to understand that artists really become inspired a lot of times by what's happening in the surrounding, in their own, whether where they live or whether it is the environment. So it's always this idea of nurture versus nature. And this is very interesting because right now what I'm finding that people really love to collect is anything that does have that piece in it, like a beautiful landscape, because they don't want to focus on the hustle bustle of the city right now. There's a lot of negativity attached to that. So I find it interesting that you are creating landscapes and the reasons for that.
Right. Yeah. And like I said, we go out a lot. We took a little road trip a couple weeks ago to another area that we hadn't been to. And then, another time we went up to northern New Mexico and took the top off the convertible and cruised around. And so, yeah, I think just being out there looking and taking pictures of some of these locations have inspired me to do the landscapes. And landscapes are easier to take because I think sometimes with my art, with Native and Native history, they can be a little political, and some people kind of don't want to deal with that. And landscapes are, they're landscapes.
Right. And let's see your figurative, because I know that, you've got a huge following of collectors with these pieces.
So I've just been playing, with this images. Some of the images I've painted before, but a lot bigger, broader brushstroke, and just looser, looking a lot of the California style artists of the 50s, and just kind of having fun with it. I've been threatening to do it for years, and whenever all this kind of came down and each show kept getting canceled, I'm just like, shit, I got time. And my wife was like, you should just do it. You've been kicking it around and messing around for years. And so I decided to kind of go for it. And these two that I'm showing are the latest ones that I've done. And so this has a lot of movement, a lot of big brush strokes. And
love it.
And I'm happy with them. I'm still kind of exploring it. I told the gallery I'll bring some in at some point and let them see what they think if they want to try them out. And I have no idea what I sold one about a week ago. Somebody saw it when I sent an email out, or they saw it on my website or Instagram or something. I don't know, but they contacted me and they bought one of these new pieces. So it's always kind of exciting to see that people that have been following you and they see you trying to experiment and do a little bit of something different. Has been it's nice. And like I said, I've had success with the landscape. So yes, it's encouraging to kind of keep doing it, because I've done stuff in the past that I really liked. And, you take them and just people, don't have the same reaction, or they're not as interested in some of the stuff that you do.
Well,
But
I think as an artist, especially for you, since I've interviewed you, is you're always pushing the envelope and trying new things and expanding your creativity. Now, can you share with the viewers, are those, I know that you use historical people that you paint. Who are those in, that you've painted there?
this one here is my great great grandfather, Quanah Parker. This one, I call it Sweetgrass because there's a photograph of him, but there's no name or tribe. In a lot of the historical photographs, that's kind of the case. And the picture was he was holding a braid of sweetgrass. And so, but I'll continue to research and find out, his name. And in this piece here, this guy's name is Many Horses, and he's Lakota and Comanche. So I do try to find as much information as I do on the person that I'm painting. Sometimes there's not a whole lot. Sometimes there's whole books about them. And like, I think now more than ever, I've done talks and lectures about, we're the same people. We're the same, we have a lot of the same fights, the same struggles.
Right.
Like the gaming compacts in Oklahoma, that's our livelihood. We were dealing with the state with that. Some of the tribes in Oklahoma got federal recognition for their original reservations. The mascot thing, our identity.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff. And even now, dealing with this pandemic, yeah, we're the same people. We have the same issues. So whenever I paint these guys, it's kind of retelling their story and bringing them out of kind of this iconic imagery or postcard imagery into like real being. And even though some of these paintings are more abstract, it's the people. And when I title my paintings, I title it their name if I can. So
right.
If I have their
name, remember that.
The name of the painting. And so whenever I do a lot of lectures on Native culture, Comanche culture, my family history, and just trying to tell the story. Because I always want people, if they have one of these paintings in their house, to know who this person was.
Right.
To it.
Well, maybe share a little bit. Not everybody watching knows this rich history that you come from. I always joke that you're one of the only people that I've met who are native royalty, if you will.
Yeah, my great great grandfather is Chief Quanah Parker on my mom's side. My mom's name is Lenore Parker, and so she's the Parker, and so he's my granddad's granddad. And there's just books and books and books on Quanah Parker about what he did. He was half white. His mom was a captive when she was 9, and then she married Chief Nocona, who I'm named after, which is Quanah's father.
Oh, wow.
And Quanah became a prominent figure. He was a warrior, he was a chief, he was a leader. And he's, him and other chiefs were the ones that kind of led them on, when they had to finally surrender because of, their world was collapsing, smallpox, war, just intrusion of, people just moving into the region. And so he kind of led them on to the reservation and the reservation life. Because, Comanches were, I think at the height, 40,000 plus all of their allies were, other tribes. And, they
were the warriors. I mean, if you think of Indian country as a whole, there were, we were probably surfing at the beach here in California because
right.
we had it pretty good. We didn't have the winters and all of that to contend with. So there wasn't a lot of neighboring wars happening where my tribe's from. But your tribe, you guys were, excuse the phrase, but you guys were the badasses.
Yeah, we were raiders, and we kidnapped people and stole horses and all kinds of good stuff. So so they had a very big impact on the region. I always say the Comanches kind of made their emergence around the 1660s. And then I always credit the Pueblo Revolt with the rise of the Comanches, because when the Pueblos kind of kicked all the Spanish out, all of a sudden the Comanches kind of had free reign, and there were a lot of free horses, I guess. And the Comanches kind of emerged around 1680, 1700, until the late 1870s, 1880s. So you're talking 200 years of dominance of the region, and like I said, they had allies. within their territory that they worked with. And yeah, they had an impact. I mean, we took on, the Spanish, the Mexicans, the French, Texas.
Right. And not only were you a warring people, I read a whole book about, Comanche. You were also very brilliant when it came to creativity. There were architects, there were engineers. The tribes themselves were actually pretty advanced, considering the times,
Right.
being able to get water. There were all these really interesting things that the Comanche tribe had going for it. It was a very intelligent kind of a RAN system within the
Right.
Comanche tribe, which is very interesting. And then didn't you go on to say in the interview that your grandfather was a code talker?
Yeah, my mom's father, his name was Simmons Parker, and he was a Comanche code talker in World War II. I know a lot of people know about the Navajo code talkers, but a lot of tribes had code talkers. But the Comanche and the Navajo in World War II were a little bit different. So the Comanche, the army started with the Comanche, and it was kind of more in depth. Where a lot of tribes talked just in their language. What the Comanche actually did with the army is they actually had Comanche words that meant something. So like a certain turtle, snapping turtle would be a certain kind of tank, or a bomber would be a catfish, and a catfish eggs were. So it's kind of a double code, even in Comanche. So even if you spoke Comanche and you overheard it, you didn't necessarily know what the code was.
Got it.
It was a double code. And so the Comanche had started that with the army, and then the Marines took it and used that same plan with the Navajo. And so the Comanches were in Europe. So my grandfather was on Omaha and Normandy Beach, relaying code in order to bomb the Germans on the beaches, and then the Navajo in the Pacific with the Japanese. And so my grandfather, he's a gold medal recipient. He's in the Oklahoma Military Museum along with all the other Comanche code talkers. And there's a book about him if you're interested. It's called Comanche Code Talkers, and it tells their story. And for a long time, none of the code talkers could talk about what they did, because they never knew when they would meet them again. And so these are people that were shipped off to boarding school and punished for speaking their language, starting in the early 1800s.
My grandfather, the same thing. Well, my great grandfather, actually.
Right, and so they were punished for speaking the language. Then all of a sudden, they had a great idea where they needed to speak their language in order to win a war, and it was very, very successful. Even the French had honored the Comanche Nation because they really took, even though the French got pummeled, the Comanche language was one of the reasons that turned the tide because of these code talkers, because the Germans and the Japanese, they couldn't break these codes.
Right. I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it? And I think that ear for language is also attributes to our music, to our culture, the ability to be able to have that level of understanding within the audio. It's really, and it's fascinating. There's actually, I'm going to get off on a tangent, but there's actually scientists that have studied that still can't figure out how the code talkers were able to do what they did. I mean, it's incredible. Do you ever reflect and think about, so here you are, you have all of this rich history, this DNA that, is all part of who you are as a creative. And here you are, you're commemorating these great warriors in your artwork. And you're almost bringing that energy into them, because I spoke to a couple of your collectors that said they feel like your art is alive, like it's bringing them this power, this warrior spirit within their surroundings. And I find that to be fascinating, because I personally feel that art has its own energy because somebody like you created it.
I really feel that. I always kind of joke that sometimes when you're painting at 3 o'clock in the morning and you've been looking at this person for 12 hours, photograph this person, you really, I know it kind of sounds corny and artsy, but it really does. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the information that I do find, I'm looking and reading and researching and trying to find, and really trying to, like I said, retell their story, and men and women, and it's just, I'm a kind of a historical nut. I read everything, and I remember when I was a kid, my granddad gave me some of those Time Life books, the ones that look like the leather. Right. it's the gunfighters and the warriors and the chiefs and the railroads and, and I read those things and I love them. And I think that's where my love for kind of this historical Old West came to be. And somewhere along the way between that and drawing, in school and high school, you're kind of drawing cards and your friends and football players. And then somewhere along the way, the historical stuff that I was reading and, coming from a historical significant background all kind of collided, with the paintings and the history and stuff. Because I read a lot of historical, but not just Comanche and not just Native, but I love to read and research and so that's what I do. I mean, I know, sometimes you catch flack. People, oh, you're still painting Indians and blankets and stuff. But I'm like, hey, that's what I love. That's what I know. Because my dad,
what I love about your art is because it is so rich in history.
And, my dad always said, paint what you know. This is what I know. And like I said, I do my research and make sure that, and like I said, sometimes there's not a lot of information on an image. And some of the images I just love and I've painted them several times. I don't do any reproductions. I do all originals. And but I just love it. I love this. I love the faces. I love the story. I relate to it. And again, saying that we're the same people. We're just wearing different clothes because we still have some of the same issues, some of the same fights, some of the same struggles, and a lot of the same successes. I always say the reason I'm here and I'm able to do what I'm doing and be a successful person is because of the sacrifices that these people made.
Absolutely.
And I want to honor that, and I want to retell their story.
You're right, and I think one of the reasons why people are attracted to Native art, whether you're Native or not, is here we are. Our ancestors have been on this land from the inception. And so when we put our feet on the land, we have a DNA that's connecting us with this earth, with this actual place we call the United States of America. And I think that, we became occupied, and we're not the first country. There's been many countries in history that have been overtaken by, a new regime, if you will, or a new people. So that's not really that. I mean, it's new because it wasn't that long ago here on this land. But I think that people are attracted to Native art because they are also living here as citizens of this land. And there's almost like a hearkening back of seeing and knowing that we were the originators here on this particular plot of land. And now a lot of people are very interested in the stories of the land that they live on now and the people that were the original people here. And that's what you're bringing to the world of art, is you're bringing these stories, this rich history, because I think a lot of people are curious. Most people these days know that what they've been taught in school, in history books, it's not accurate, but a lot of people are interested in knowing the true story, and that's what you're bringing, and it's amazing.
And I've seen young people or young artists get frustrated because people don't know, or people ask stupid questions, which, and, I always say, don't get mad, don't get frustrated. I said, it's your job as an artist, a storyteller, an educator to let them know, tell them the story behind what you're painting or what you're creating or your tribal information, because people don't know. I said, we're 1.5% of the population. People do not know about us. We don't occupy space in people's minds. We don't occupy space politically. I think that Facebook and all this has given us a voice and given us a position to be able to say things and fight, these mascots and fight, kind of these misconceptions about what's going on. And it also shows people that we're still fighting for our land. We don't want oil spilled on our water sources. We don't want, our missing and murdered Indigenous women to be ignored. We don't want the Navajo Nation to be ignored when they're getting pummeled by this pandemic because of things that are happening. So, like I said, I think this social media format has helped us. But again, we're a small percent of the population. So I feel like my responsibility is to talk. And like I said, I don't have to do lectures at museums. I don't have to do lectures. I could just paint and go about my business.
Right.
But I feel a responsibility. Yeah, I feel a responsibility to talk about my tribe and my family history. And, because I kind of locked horns with the guy that wrote Empire of the Summer Moon, because there was a lot of misconceptions and things that he
Good for you.
And he only went, with like the written account and not the Comanche account. And so I just, kind of push back and, let people know that there's other stories and there's other information, not trying to be an a-hole or anything about it, but just saying, hey, we've got a story to tell, but also realizing, we're a small population, but, we get out there, and I'm always amazed, and I said, I'll never take for granted the fact that like 100 to 150,000 people come to Indian Market every year, and they spend $140 million. And
Right.
all those people learn, even if they don't know a whole lot, they're learning about Navajo jewelry. They're learning about Hopi patinas, and they're learning about Comanche art and traditional arts and contemporary arts. So all those people are being educated in a way, and that excites me. That people are this passionate, they're spending this much money, and they're making this much effort to come here and talk to these 1,200 artists and learn about them. And even people that aren't buying, people that just are here visiting and understanding, going to these film festivals, to these lectures, to these fashion shows, to kind of see what's going on in our world. And I always think those people go out into the world, and they kind of spread the word of what they learned. And so it's exciting. And I think
it is. And they also get to take a piece of that home with them as part of this journey to almost, I mean, Indian country is its own country, and they get to not only meet the artists in person, but also hear the traditions and the stories that we have had, throughout our whole lives.
Right.
We know, and as Native people. So it's really, I think this year is going to be a very interesting year for us in Indian country, because just like the rest of the world, we've been affected. But I think that people maybe sometimes don't understand, like you just mentioned, we are the smallest minority group in the United States. And at one time, we were 100 million strong on this continent. So we've been affected in a way that something like Indian Market creates something that is very important for people who are still creating traditionally on reservations, and a place that they can go and make a living doing that. So it's going to be a big hit, but I'm hoping that through that we're able to educate people to go out there and support artists like you, and support artists that we're going to bring on the show, and go to their website and be able to collect a beautiful piece of art. And you don't have to worry. I always tell collectors, they're like, oh, I don't know, should I buy that online? I say, if you like it online, you're going to love it in person. So don't worry.
I don't want to disappoint you. Yeah, that's a good point. I just feel like it's tough, but I feel like, natives in general are resilient. Native artists are, they figure out how to make their way, and I feel like collectors and supporters are going to come through. People plan for this, people set their budgets for this, and just because you're not able to make it to Santa Fe this time, who you're supporting, who you're buying. A lot of my collectors, I feel, they know what my work looks like in person, and so I feel like those people are going to come through. And then on a note about the percentage of Native Americans, I said we make up 1.5% of the population, but we make up 50% of the diversity in this country. So that's 379. I think 579 tribes, over 300 languages. So yeah, so we're there, we're here, we're around, and we're going to be here. I just hope that we make it through. Hopefully, it's just a 1-year deal and it's not ongoing. But it's tough. And like I said, I really feel like my artist friends, and they're going to figure something out. They'll figure it out. And I believe
we're still here, right? And that's kind of our slogan, and that is a good one. And not only are we here, but we're giving back, and you're giving back in your art, and people are becoming inspired by the stories of the people that you're painting. And I think what you're doing is so important to the world, especially right now in this time, because the people that you're painting were the warriors and were resilient. And that's what we need to look to right now is, those folks that we can say they made it through, we're all going to make it through. So I think what you're doing is so important. And besides that, just beautiful.
When I paint them, it reminds me who I am and where I come from. That's kind of a big deal.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your art, folks. We have it right here on the website, NoconaBurgess.com, I believe, right?
Yep.
So go to his website. If you see a piece that you love, you have my permission, buy that piece, get it in your home. I promise you, you will love it for your entire lifetime. And it will go on to bless the next generation and the next generation after that. So I always say, we don't actually ever really own art. We just get to borrow it. We buy it and we get to borrow it. And then we get the next generation to be able to enjoy great art. So I just appreciate what you're doing. And I really appreciate your upbeat spirit. I know you are a warrior because I've done an interview with you, and you're one of those people out there that are not afraid to tell it like it is. And we need more folks like you, creative and smart and strong. You're the triple threat.
And I'd just like to say thank you, Art of the City, for having me on here, and Swaya for giving me the chance to kind of kick everything off. You know, this is a big deal. Swaya online, Indie Market online. It's a big deal, and I just hope and pray for the best for everybody. And thank you for having me on here and the opportunity to speak.
Well, my pleasure. And I can't wait to see you and your family, and give my love to everyone over there. Stay safe and keep doing what you're doing. We need it. The world needs somebody like you, Nocona. You're a blessing to all of us.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll see you soon. Okay, folks, Nocona Burgess. I had an opportunity early on in November to go into his studio and do a in-depth interview with him, and you can watch that. It's going to be coming live soon. I was going to try to stream a little bit here online, but if you go to Art of the City TV on YouTube, subscribe to the station. We very much appreciate that, and then you can scroll down and you'll see Art of the City Santa Fe. But I want to thank Swaya for having this platform online so folks can see these creatives coming in. And I also wanted to give you a little bit of a list of folks that are going to be coming in the next few weeks. So we have Raymond Norwell, Jeremy Salzar, George Rivera. These are all amazing artists, painter, sculptor. Cody Sanderson, which I'm a big fan of. He's a jewelry maker. We have Lois Ellen Frank, who is a culinary artist there in Santa Fe. Roxanne Swinsel, she's one of my soul sisters. Robbie Romero, very famous native. Freddie Bitsui, who's also a culinary chef. And then we're going to have a very special tribute to a young man who passed away recently, which many of you know, 5-time world champion hoop dancer, Nocona Laurent. And his sister will be dancing in tribute to him. His father, Steve, will be on the show showing his jewelry and talking. And we're going to have a few guests that will be jumping in to share, you know, their memories and to give tribute to this young man's life. He had a great impact in Indian country and then throughout the world because he traveled with Cirque du Soleil for many years. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then we have Frank Buffalo Hyde. Those are a few of the great creatives coming out of Indian country. So I invite you to make sure you mark your calendar Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you're coming in from Santa Fe, that would be 5 p.m. your time. And then you have to figure out where you're streaming from and mark it on your calendar. But I really appreciate you tuning in today, Art of the City. And this whole month is devoted to Indian country. As a Native American, I just want to share the beauty of Native art. And I hope that you're blessed the rest of the week. And I'll see you Monday, Art of the City. Make sure you subscribe now, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon.